Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Public Works Finance Committee regular meeting for Monday, October 14th, 2019. First item of business is the approval of the September 23rd Public Works Finance meeting minutes. Anybody see anything wrong with that? They look good to me. I think we can approve those for the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And next up is the disbursement report for September. Sarah's going to tell us how we spent our money.
Yep. So looking at the month-end expenditure report for September 30, 2019, our major expenditures totaled $2,221,943. Our largest expenditure was payroll that came in at $1,065,701. There were 5 other expenditures that I wanted to talk about. We had a payment for a water main replacement that came in at $111,913. A slurry seal payment, which was a contractual payment, for $54,487. We had our irrigation installation at Lola Clyde. That payment was $30,000. Design work for our new police services facility came in at $60,211. And then our fourth quarter payment for Smart Transit was $31,837. Other than that, everything else was monthly payments.
All of those have the right amount of zeros on the end of them, so I'm good with that.
Yep.
Guess we can sign that report.
Okay. You got the pen?
Sarah?
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Item number 3 on today's agenda is a public meeting. It's a proposed lot division at 933 East 7th Street. Mike Ray will show us what's going on with that. Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon. So before you today, we have a lot division request at 933 East 7th Street, and this is at the request of Mark Warner and Amy Gray. This is the property outlined in red at the center of your screen. We've got 7th Street here to the north, Blaine Street running north-south to the east, surrounded primarily by just other residential development. You do have some duplexes further to the block to the north, north of 7th Street. Taking a look at the zoning configurations in the moderate density single-family residential zoning district, which is the R2 zone. Just to the north of 7th is the R3 zone, which is medium density residential, which allows twin homes, townhouses, and duplexes. So minimum lot size of the R2 is 7,000 square feet, minimum lot width 60 feet, and the setback requirements, there's an existing house on this property. The front's 20, rear's 20, and the side is a minimum of 5 with a combination of 15 on either side. So just a closer view of the property. So 7th Street to the north, Blaine to the east. You have an existing driveway that accessed off of 7th Street. There is another curb cut here to the east, as well as one here. Single-family dwelling on this property, and then there's just a large garden area here to the south. This was the site plan that was submitted, so the bottom of your screen is actually looking north. So this is 7th down here. Existing structure, existing shed, and a lean-to. Meets setback requirements, so this would be the proposed lot here to the south, 84.5 feet wide. And it would meet existing setback requirements for the existing house. It's about 34 feet back from the proposed property line. And then the shed and lean-to structure would just be required to meet a 5-foot setback, so they meet that requirement. Looking at the aerial, it's 31,156 square feet in size. The proposal would be to divide it into 2 lots. The northerly 19,270 square feet, and the southerly 11,885 square feet in size. And it would meet all minimum lot size, lot width requirements, but for both lots located in the R2 zone. So per our policy, everybody within 600 feet has been notified, and the site's been posted 7 days in advance. And staff's recommendation is to take public comment if applicable and recommend approval of lot division with no conditions.
All right, seems pretty straightforward. Gary?
Mike, do we have a policy on driveways where you have to back out onto a collector street?
It would just be arterial street, Gary, so collector, you'd still be able to back out
So
onto.
Blaine is okay then?
This would be a pre-existing condition, even if it was an arterial. We just don't allow any more driveways to back out on the street. So in the house design, if this was an arterial, they would just have to identify a turnaround area so that they could head out, back out onto the street instead of backing out. So that would just be plan review during the building permit process, that we'd make sure that they have the proper turnaround.
Is the current driveway off 7th Street, looks like it's concrete?
Correct.
Okay, is it possible to place condition on the property to get rid of the curb cut on the parcel with the house on it onto Blaine Street, since it already has off-street parking to the lot?
You could certainly, or the council could certainly place that condition. The applicant's here, so they could certainly talk about if they use that or not. I'd imagine it's probably access to the garden area in the back, since there's quite a bit of elevation change from 7th Street here down to Blaine Street. So I believe they probably use that as access to the garden area, but Amy could certainly elaborate.
Thank you.
Looks to me like that, since you have two curb cuts really close to the new lot, then that would allow them to not have to back out if they could put a loop driveways and use one as an entrance and one as an exit. That could be beneficial, or, it could be a safety improvement, really. You could drive in one and out the other and never have to back out into the street.
That would require an easement if that,
Well, obviously, yeah, but I don't know what their plans are for the property.
yeah. And we're not here to look at development as much as the minimum lot size and that sort of thing. I was just thinking, if one of the ideas is to keep driveways from backing out on a collector street, this might be a prime opportunity to eliminate one of those driveways from being an issue. Okay, thank you.
Any, well,
You're gonna
in
have
order
to
to
come up-
speak, you'll have to come up here and say who you are and where you live.
On this mic?
Yeah, just come right up here, yeah.
All you have to state is the city of your residence.
My name's Chet Lawton, and I live in Moscow. I'm curious if the lot proposed was the 19,270 square foot lot, whether that would be allowed to be split into two, since they would meet the 7,000 requirement, or who gets to decide whether it's one or two lots.
Well, I think they would have to make a separate application to split that in the future. They can't do it as a result of this action.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, so if anyone would like to come forward and speak about this situation, if the applicant's here and wants to tell us what their plans are, or speak in favor, or somebody wants to speak against, you're certainly welcome to come up and do so.
You want to come up, Amy? Amy, you need to come up.
Okay.
Right.
If you guys have questions, I'm more than welcome to answer
You
them.
need to state your name and. that
Amy
you're the
Gray,
applicant.
933 East 7th Street. I'm willing to answer questions. At this point, we're dividing the lot. And so it's a little bit disconcerting to suddenly hear conditions about development that we're not there yet. In terms of backing into Blaine, the neighbors to the south do it, the neighbors across the street do it multiple times, in multiple situations. So that's a surprise to me, I guess, and so we would have to address, when we get there. But at this point, we've been here for 15 years. We intend to hold on to both pieces for another, till retirement. So we're just at the division stage at this point.
Yeah, it was just a question on my part.
Yeah, if I was gonna ask you a question, it would just be, since you're retaining both pieces, would you be amenable to making those two curb cuts connect so that that could be an in and an out driveway? Like, you probably don't know what your plans are for that.
We would have to take down more trees, and part of this whole thing, the way we have the lots divided is so that they can't be subdivided again. The only way to divide the big lot would be to take down the house. Into two legal lots, and we made sure that the break off was going to be small enough so it couldn't be flag lotted and redivided again, and it's just under. But no, we want to preserve the character of the lot, the trees itself, and the thing is the city put the curb cuts in there when they put in Blaine, so.
It's not really your
If I have to undo that, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it meets all of the requirements for a lot division like this, and to a certain extent represents a little itty bitty bit of infill development where there might otherwise not be a residence, so I'm in favor of it as it stands.
Yeah, I'm in favor with no conditions personally. Agreed. So I think that's where we stand on that. We'll call it
Consent agenda?
consent agenda is with no conditions. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 4 is the Crisis Center presentation, and Joyce Lyons is going to tell us what's going on with that. Good afternoon, Joyce.
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me.
Good afternoon, Darrell.
Good afternoon.
I'm Joyce Lyons. I actually live in Genesee.
I'm Daryl Kime. I live in Moscow.
I work for public health, and the state, a few years ago, legislated crisis centers for the 7 districts, 7 regions. And Region 2 is relatively small, so we got one of the last dollar amounts. And what we realized, our behavioral health board realized, was that the model that every other region had taken on didn't fit in Region 2. In other words, they put the crisis center in the most populous area. It was hard to pick between Lewiston and Moscow. And then what did we do with the people that really needed some help out in Grangeville or Orfino? And so the Behavioral Health Board said we need to do mini centers throughout the region. And that's what we're taking the dollars and doing with. So the dollars are funded. We don't need to ask or raise money. And what the crisis center does, it's a 23-hour and 59-minute center. I'm diligent at making sure that this, and Daryl sitting next to me is very diligent about making sure that we don't have, this doesn't turn into a homeless shelter.
Right, I remember your presentation at the fairgrounds not too long ago, and that 24 hours was the maximum, and if someone was in trouble, they'd have to go outside for a few minutes and come back in
Right,
in order to make that work.
Exactly, and we're aware that some things, they take a little while to resolve, but the point is to engage in treatment and to move forward. So I brought some information, just wanted to be a really good community partner here, and I'll leave it all for you. It's just a brochure about what we do and why we do it. And so the process is, and I'll leave the cards here too, the process to access services is, number 1, to walk in the door. And public health holds the contract for state funding. And so I'm actually coordinating the project between the communities. And we're partnering in Moscow with the Recovery Center because we think that we'll probably be serving a similar population. And some of Daryl's clients can benefit from having the crisis center there. Maybe just a few extra services get connected, where they need additional services. So his organization is peer-run. The crisis center is actually an outpatient clinic, classified as an outpatient clinic. So it's professional run, and Daryl is a professional, although his staff is the real professionals that are going to be doing it. So social worker.
They're laughing when you said I'm a professional.
Yeah, I think you're a professional.
No laughing.
It's a
For the
professional.
record, there was no laughing. Well, Ann is now, but that's not from the same joke.
For the record, I was teasing there. Yes, I was teasing.
And he is professional, he's just not necessarily a crisis intervention specialist, which he does have staff that do that. So during his open hours, which are 10 to 8, his staff will be meeting with whoever walks through the door in crisis, and they will do the, what I like to call triage. We've partnered with Melanie Scott, Scott's Community Care, to provide the treatment and assessment. So Daryl's person will start the process and actually use that number to call and notify that we have somebody here, you need to come in and do some intervention stuff and assessment. So the assessment includes risk assessment, suicide, all of those type of things. All that you would get except the medical intervention if you needed it, if you went to the hospital. So we've partnered with your EMS services here in town to respond if we run into some trouble with medical. We're working with Gritman. We'll partner with Gritman. We haven't just decided exactly how, but it should cut down. If we can figure out how to go in and help them assess, we may be able to cut down on some additional hospitalizations for some of the citizens in the Latah County area. And we're partnering with the University of Idaho also for their counseling and testing center so that we can keep some of those kids out of the hospital if they don't quite need that level of care. So what it really is the difference between staying home and taking care of yourself, going out and having a crisis and getting involved with law enforcement and ending up either in jail or in the hospital. And so we're kind of right in the middle there. And Daryl, like I said, partnered with Daryl here in Moscow. We partnered with the Recovery Center in Lewiston. We have a standalone agency in Orfino that's providing the services at this time, and we're working with an agency in Grangeville to provide the services. So that's where we stand.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent addition to our
Oh, I think so.
service.
I think so.
And dovetails with what Daryl's doing, and so it's
We're
great.
excited.
Thank you for
No problem.
presenting that.
Yeah.
We can have some of those cards,
You can have them all.
okay? Great.
And if you walk downtown, it has a presence down there right now. We're looking at a soft opening within the next few days. And then get the governor up here for a ribbon cutting and all of that type of thing. Make it formal.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
I think I'm next. Can I just stay here?
Yes.
You certainly may.
Thank you.
I have to go back for
You
a
can
minute.
stay.
Come back out.
It's like,
that 1
we have a
minute.
24-hour rule, and you're within that, so you're okay. Yeah.
Okay, next we've got the Latah Recovery Community Center request for one-time participation in a project. It was back earlier in the summer when the Crisis Center was partnering with the Recovery Center. Daryl had sent a letter requesting some assistance with some infrastructure improvements they were making at the Recovery Center in order to complement the work that the Crisis Center would be doing. At that time, the only origin for funds or available funds that we have is in non-prioritized projects in the legislative budget. We'd expended, or council had expended all of the funds in non-prioritized projects at that time. Asked Daryl if he wanted to wait until the new budget year and then resubmit. He indicated that would be great. As soon as the budget rolled on October 1st, we got him here as quickly as possible. You have his letter in your packet. I'll leave it to him to explain the project, and we currently, council approved and appropriated $30,000 in legislative non-prioritized projects, which, as you know, is about $10,000 more than was appropriated last year. Anticipating that this was coming forward, council decided to increase that amount. So with that, I'll turn it over to Daryl, if that's okay with the
Okay.
chair.
Thank you, Gary.
So it's pretty simple. We took on the crisis services, working with Joyce's group, and we expanded. We were in 531 South Main B, and we were able to expand to 531 South Main A. And that side of things, Joyce's side of the project, is fully funded. And we've spent around $50,000 on bringing that up to snuff, a little bit more, in fact, is what it'll come out to be, so that we can have a crisis center. And since we're able to get adjoining facilities, we just popped a door right in the middle. So people in crisis will enter through the existing recovery center, and then there'll be a door in the middle, and as they're screened and whatnot, they'll be coming into the crisis center. But as long as we were engaging an architect, we felt it was a good time to ask an architect's opinion on how to improve the recovery center and make it interface better with the crisis center. And that's what this request is all about, was they did a wonderful job on the crisis center, and they came up with some great suggestions for the recovery center for putting in some new walls and moving some existing walls, construction. And we want to start doing that, building that vision. If you guys want to see pictures, I have the architect's drawings. If you want me to get them out, I don't know whether that'd be appropriate, but I brought them. It's pretty simple, though. It's just a matter of trying to better use the space. The existing space, if you're to walk in there 2 weeks ago, it's just one long shop, and it looks like a traditional downtown shop. And we put in a private meeting room in the back that had capacity to hold 20 to 25 people, and that is by far the most popular room in the place. No matter how big the group is, they all want to meet back there because they don't feel like they have privacy elsewhere in the recovery center. So we're trying to develop more private, semi-private spots. And that's really what it's all about.
Gary?
One of the things we try to do is, as you know, the council used to run a grants program where they would take worthy causes and they'd appropriate a certain amount of money to support those. And since that time, the Attorney General indicated that public philanthropy is not one of the city's missions, so it has to be related to something that the city does. So you'll see these come through typically in non-prioritized projects. In this case, you'll see some of the discussion that Darrell has in his letter. I engaged Chief Fry, hope that he'd be here today, to talk about some of the things that might benefit the city by having the crisis center in town, such as if you have someone who's going through a crisis that we don't have to assign a police officer on overtime to sit next to them while they're in Gritman Medical Center or transporting them to a facility which ends up costing the taxpayers money. So in this case, he sees a real benefit to this. You'll recall that I believe it was last year that, or the year before, that council did assist the Latah Recovery Center in making that
The
conference
private room
room.
that we have, yeah.
So there have been benefits from that Darrell's just talked about. So this is definitely something that could have a positive budgetary impact for our police department, as well as provide additional services to the community.
So in my letter, I referenced, I forget the number of holds, but a $200,000 cost over the course of 3 years. The chief has better numbers than I thought he was going to be here too.
So did I.
So something must have come up. But he assured me that $200,000 was extremely low estimate, and that his people typically, when they go to the ER, are not there only 24 hours, they're 48 to 72 hours. And that's well into overtime. So I didn't even begin to calculate overtime when I came up with that number. So if he can bring, and I talked to him, Joyce, you were there too, so if I don't remember correctly, I think he said that he expected at least 50% of their ER holds to be able to come down to the crisis center instead.
Well, and that statistics show that in this area too, because they'll go into the hospital, the quiet environment, and the officer doesn't have a lot of choice, the doctor doesn't have a lot of choice, they need to have that person safe. The one thing, if those people are voluntary, is where it's going to benefit the city. If they're voluntary, they can come to the crisis center and avoid the cost both at the hospital, which might hit your indigent fund, and then with your police officers, it frees them up to be out on the street too. Because Darrell has arranged for security within the center when there's a patient in there.
Can I ask a question? Is that the only distinction between whether or not someone goes to the crisis center versus the hospital? Is whether or not it's voluntary?
Not the only, no, level of lethality or level of care needed. So that's what the assessment piece of it is. Our officers do a fantastic job of assessing whether someone is a danger to self, others are gravely disabled. And those are the three things that they need to be hospitalized about. It's that gray area when they just aren't quite sure, and the patient may well be willing to go, but they might change their mind or something. But like in Moscow, I do know how many, we can talk about how many of those people that actually go through the hospital end up at St. Joe's and then end up at State Hospital North. It's a very low percentage in Nez Perce and Latah County, very low percentage. I'd say maybe 1 in 5. So if we can hit 3 out of 5 that don't have to go to the hospital and don't have to expend that officer time. I think that in and of itself is a benefit.
Gary?
Joyce, will the crisis center be taking involuntary commitments or just voluntary commitments?
Only, we will not take commitments, we'll take people in crisis that are voluntary.
So the way it'll work, Joyce kind of explained it, but since we were talking about the crisis center, I'll go into a little bit my understanding. So Joyce explained that when somebody enters via the recovery center, even, we'll call this it's a 1877 number, and we'll start the intake process. She's giving these cards out like popcorn to just about everybody that she can, as far as the EMS folks and whatnot. So the idea is people won't just self-report down to the recovery center, but rather a police officer that's familiar with this program might think, hey, I've got a person that fits. They could call that 1877 number, and that would start the chain of reaction. If it was after hours, we would come down, open up the shop. Scott Community Care would start to come in so that they could do the mental health screening of the person, make sure they're not a danger to themselves or others, and it would all flow from there. So it's not even us automatically knowing to open the shop. It's the peace officer, it's the ambulance, it's the ER maybe even.
It's a clinic, it's a family member, once things get out there, that's what happens in the other areas. It can be a school that's sending a student down, it can be a family member, it can be law enforcement, it can be any community member that makes a referral.
Great.
So to kind of wrap up my side of things as far as the recovery center, we're committed to making sure the crisis center is going to be highly successful. And we're just trying to take advantage of the opportunity to, with an increased load of people coming through, we want to have better privacy. So we're trying to find a way to do that as quickly as possible.
I think it's great that you're able to be next to each other, and I've always really loved that it was downtown too, and so well integrated. I think it's a great location for that service.
You can walk from the hospital.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And the police department, and
And
the
the police
sheriff's
department,
office, and the ambulance.
If it's the committee's desire to move this forward to council with a recommendation, we can arrange to have Chief Fry there and put it on the regular agenda if you'd like.
I think that would be an excellent recommendation to have Chief Fry there, because he's going to have numbers that substantiate what you say, and it seems like a positive cash flow decision that we're making here, so.
And beyond the positive cash flow, there's also the human aspect of things later on and downstream, where if you can catch somebody early, intervene, and get them set right, you haven't got them into the system and got a name for them and things like that. So I think it benefits the community at large as well as just the cold, hard bottom line cash. And for a $10,000 investment, I think the returns are well worth it.
Excellent.
Thank you both for all the work that you do.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
So that meeting is next Monday?
Next Monday, 7
p.m.
o'clock.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Joyce, will you be coming to that meeting as well?
I can.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we've decided to approve that support in the amount of $10,000 and put that on the regular agenda for next Monday's city council meeting.
Will do, thank you.
Okay, that's all the items on the agenda. We now have a report from the Idaho Rural Water Association about their apprenticeship program, and Jen's going to tell us about that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So the Idaho Rural Water Association has been working with the National Rural Water Association. They're developing standards nationwide for the apprenticeship programs for both water operator specialists and then wastewater systems operator specialists as well. This is a program that we have in our water department and wastewater treatment plant department have looked at and have followed along fairly closely in the past. It really mirrors the type of training that we've done as we move our employees from apprentices to journey or journeymen, and then to seniors. So it fit really well with a few things that we're already doing. Some of the benefits that come with this is a more standardized approach to this apprenticeship to journey level for our employees, and not just in Moscow, but across the nation and in Idaho, as the Idaho Rural Water Association has been working on this. In addition, there is, when we work with Department of Labor, the opportunity for a small amount of reimbursement or a stipend to help cover training costs, equipment costs, safety equipment, those kinds of things, up to about $2,500 per employee. So we'll work on that piece as well. There is a small amount of paperwork. We have the employee enroll in what's called the RAPIDS program, and then we participate through this agreement When both are in the system, then we can work with Department of Labor to get that reimbursement. And then also we have the formal apprenticeship program moving forward for the employee as well. So wanted to let you folks know that was going on, and we look forward to getting that started. We have a few apprentice employees right now, and so we'll see what might work for them. But the program's really outstanding, really fits well with everything we already do, and thought it would be a good way to go forward.
So just to clarify, is this just getting the apprentice to journeyman, or does it also continue with education to get journeyman on up to senior?
There is another level that we will look at next, that would be more of the journey to senior, but we need to see how that lines up with our system. So there is a more advanced level there.
Thank you, Jen.
Is the Idaho Rural Water Association, is that a state-run organization?
That's, yeah, they are basically administering this program for the National Rural Water Association, so they are our Idaho reps in this area. Kelsey Cole has been tremendous from IRWA. I say that wrong almost every other time, so that's good. But she's been great. Mike Parker's also been fantastic, and he learned about the program first, brought it to Human Resources, and we've worked through legal review and all of that fun stuff, so we're ready to take it on now.
Yeah, you got my other question was, has anybody checked with the water
Yep,
operators?
yep, they brought it to us. It was great, so,
You got that one, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This will not be going forward to council, we're just looking for a recommendation from committee.
Yeah, I think we should recommend that we move forward with this. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Let's go.
All right, thank you all for coming.